y'all, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Morgan, and here we do a little bit of all things spooky. I tell spooky stories, we talk about horror movies, we talk about some folklore. It is a good time if I say so myself, and if that sounds really fun, I would love to have you here. Now please check out the description below, because there you will find the email and the details to send your stories in to me to read. You will find my social medias, my Patreon, all that. So please do not miss out and check out all of that. Now today I am here to tell you guys some stories that were sent in to me. Turn on the light maybe, because sometimes these are wholesome and sometimes they are the scariest things that I've ever heard in my entire life. So I'd hate for you to be caught in the dark when it's one of the scariest ones. For a little bit of background, my dad's side of the family are heavily spiritual, and most of us seem to be in touch with the energy, as we call it. My mom's side is very religious, Catholic and Christian, but there are also stories of voodoo from our family in New Orleans. I think it's the combination that caused me to have several experiences ever since I was little. I have a bunch of stories and I'm just going to share them with you, and you can share whichever ones you like. I'm going to share them all. My earliest experience, and the only one that has unsettled me, was when I was 5 years old. I'd gone to stay the night at my friend's house in the older part of our town in Southern California. Everything was normal at first until late at night after we'd went to bed. I woke up at around 3 in the morning and needed a drink. I got on the stairs, and as I'm walking down, something white about knee-high rushes past me up the stairs. Being young and half asleep, I thought it was a cat or something and continued to get my water. But when I returned to the stairs and looked up, there was a man standing there that wasn't my friend's dad. He was older, probably in his 70s, a ring of mostly white and gray hair, pale skin, pale blue eyes, and a wider light blue shirt and khakis with dark shoes. We stared at each other a few seconds until he went off to the left and I heard a door close. Again, being half asleep, I didn't think much and went to bed. When I woke up, I asked about the white cat. My friend said that her white cat had passed a couple years before. Then I asked about her grandpa, and she just smiled. Oh, no. That's the old man that lived here before us. His room used to be where my mom and dad put their new bathroom. The door I heard close was a storage closet that used to go into a bedroom, now the master bathroom. When I was 13 to 14, a lot happened. My great-grandparents on my maternal side both got very sick from existing health conditions. My great-grandfather deteriorated very quickly, and the night that he passed, I had a dream that I had a full conversation with him, and it ended with him giving me a hug before I woke up. My mom came into the room later and told me that he had passed, and I told her I knew, that he said goodbye to me. About a year later, my great-grandmother, his wife, had complications from diabetes and fell into a coma after a surgery. I never got to see her in the hospital before she was gone. But the night before she passed, I had a dream again, and I was speaking with her in the wheelchair. Both of her legs were missing, when she had only been missing one most of my life. My mom asked me later why I was crying, and I told her that I thought Mama had died. She looked up at me confused and said no, but before she could say anything else, the phone rang, and it was my aunt telling us that she had passed early that morning. The next experiences was a few months after, when I went with some classmates on a trip to Washington, D.C. The moment we landed in DC, my fingertips began to flex, but I just ignored it. I've since learned that this is how my body tells me to be careful in my surroundings. We boarded the bus safely when several cop cars pulled up as we pulled away. I still don't know what happened because I haven't been able to find any info in researching it, and the teachers never said anything back then. We went about our business going on tours during the day of different historic buildings and places. One of the last few nights in DC, one of the teachers asked how everyone was feeling about going on a ghost tour of some sorts in an old historic buildings. Almost everyone agreed. The guys joked about scaring the girls, and a few of the girls said they hoped they'd catch a ghost on camera. I was just excited we'd go to stay out later because I hadn't been sleeping well. We get there and the tour guide us dressed in period clothing, and she showed us around, saying that there were certain ghosts spotted in some of the lore and stories of that area. As she pointed at different areas where certain ghosts appeared, it felt like I could feel someone whispering in my ear. No words, just a tickle of someone being close. I turned around and saw a shadow in the doorway behind me. I quickly raised my camera, took a picture, and there was a shadow that was vaguely human-shaped. One of my friends asked me what I was doing, and I showed her the picture. The rest of the tour, we would both take pictures, but she only got one thing in her pictures, while half of mine had unexplainable shadows or orbs that very clearly were not dust. Her one picture had me in the picture, and I had two shadows, one that was very clearly mine because I was wearing a hat with a brim, and the other was much wider than me, even with my big jacket on. In 2021, I began to practice my craft, focusing on protection, cleansing, and trying to become more in touch with my natural abilities. Immediately, I started to notice things around my apartment moving slightly, to which I wasn't sure if I had moved it, but it bugged me. Then the tapping started, one or two, maybe two taps at random points around the apartment. I worked from home because of COVID, so I brushed it off as my neighbors or squirrels for a long time. Then a small figure I had on a nearby shelf suddenly fell off, and I knew that it wouldn't just fall off on its own. I went to pick it up and not saying anything out loud, and as soon as I sat down, the same figure fell as well as another several inches away. At this point, I looked around the apartment and sighed and went to burn some incense. As I did, I walked around my apartment and I spoke out loud saying, if you wish me any harm or negativity, you're not allowed here. If you are negative, you cannot bother me anymore. I heard 2 taps on the wall over my altar area, and it felt like energy relaxing. Nothing happened again until a few weeks later when I was wasting time not wanting to get back to work. 2 of my pens suddenly fell off my desk and pointed in my direction. I took it as a sign of my friendly ghost telling me to get back to work. It only ever showed itself if I needed to do something important and wasn't doing it. 2 quick taps in the area I needed to be, and that was it. In 2022, it was almost 5 years since my grandfather passed away, and my dad, brother, and stepmom went out to dinner at a local Italian restaurant. Like I said earlier, most of my dad's family are sensitive. Me, my dad, and brother, dad's mom, and dad's sister. Anyways, the 4 of us are sitting down and talking as we wait for the food to arrive. My dad ordered an old-fashioned, and as he was about to take his first sip, him, my brother, and I all suddenly sat up straight, like something shocked us in the back. We all immediately started getting teary-eyed, and I was fully crying. We looked at each other and said, "Papa's here," at the same time. My mom was freaked out and asked what we were all talking about, and my brother told her that as I was actively crying, and my dad was trying not to cry. Within a few minutes, the feeling was gone, and we all calmed down. Alright, next story. Years ago, when I was around 11 years old, I was walking around my local woods. There's a field with a concrete path about 10 to 15 minute walk to get across, and then you reach a split in the path. Well, one path takes you to another field with a chunk of the woods following you on the other side for about 30 minutes along, then the ending. The other one takes you to a lake. Me and my dad have always liked the stream this lake creates and often visited a specific tree that has a branch twisted down to the ground on the stream side. The branch is shaped perfectly for a seat. Growing up again on the other side, although I have never liked to sit there for long. This specific time I had gone along with my friends, this being the first time without my dad by my side. I was already a little on edge, but as we got to the stream, my friend suggested that we follow the stream back to the lake. Now, me and my dad had tried this before, and if you follow the stream for 5 minutes, there's an opening in the trees where they grow about a meter away from each other. They're a lot smaller than they usually are. I've never liked this opening, and it always caused me to look over my shoulder and leave quicker than I ever have. I don't know why, but I don't stop my friend as we began walking to the opening. I think I wanted to impress her. She didn't live near any fields, so exploring was new to her. We were about to enter through the small hole between the leaves just off the path where I swear everything went silent. I asked her about this after, and she promised she didn't hear anything, but I went cold, as if I had taken off my jacket, and I heard whistling coming from the opening. I've never spoken about this before, but I had the strongest gut feeling I believe I've ever had. I grabbed her wrist and told my mom had texted and we needed to go home. I don't know why, but I couldn't tell her what I heard. I felt that I would let it know that I had heard it and it wouldn't be pleased. I started walking back down the path trying to convince her that she had heard my phone buzz. I didn't run. I do not live in America and I've never heard of the Appalachian Mountains before, but I've always had this instinct of walking. Running made me feel like I was inviting something to chase. So we walked home, and ever since then I felt a coldness around the stream. I rarely visit now, but seeing others speak about similar encounters I've had invited me to search what I could have heard. Oh, okay, yeah. There was already like so many warning signs from the like branch making a seat and the little opening. Oh. Alright, next story. The first story. My uncle was sick and dying, and I couldn't get to him because I had a weakened immune system. It was the height of COVID. I would have had to fly, and there was no flights from Tennessee, where I lived, to Milwaukee. I went to bed crying because I couldn't get to him. I had a dream that he was telling me that it was okay and he loves me so much. I fell out of my bed and my phone rang. It was his wife saying that he had passed 5 minutes prior. My 3 cousins had the same dream at the same time. I believe he was a dream hopping to tell us all goodbye. I've seen him a few times, always in his suit. His military times, he said, were the best in his life. Story 2. My dad passed away 9 months before my mom, and he would come to me 3 or 4 times a week in those 9 months, always in the same room. When my mom passed, he came and told me that he would only be coming when needed. He saved my life 5 months ago. He said that if I would take that money to the bank the next night, that I would die because I would be robbed. I didn't go to the bank the next day, and the next night the girl who took my money to the bank was robbed at gunpoint. I have so many more if interested. Whew! Please more. That was terrifying. Alright, next story. I live in West Virginia, and I never really believed in all that paranormal stuff, like, ever. But then my sister, let's just call her Emma, got super into witchcraft and all that. She started messing around with Ouija boards and who knows what else. I always thought it was just, I don't know, her way of being edgy or something. But then things started happening. One night I go to bed and I just couldn't shake this weird nervous feeling. Like I was nervous. Almost it was like this heavy twisty feeling in my stomach. But I kept telling myself it's nothing. Well, eventually I fell asleep. And by the next day I was convincing myself that I was being dumb. It's all in your head, I told myself. Emma probably was just freaking me out a little bit. But then the next night it got weird. I woke up in the middle of the night, no clue what time it was, but I felt this crazy pressure on me, like I had a bunch of weight stacked on my chest. I couldn't move. Me and Emma shared a room, by the way. So I look over to her bed and I swear I see this tall figure in the corner. It wasn't like I could see it clearly, it was just darker than the dark, like the shadow that sucked up all the light around it. When it started moving super slowly from her side of the room to mine, I'm lying there freaking out trying to scream for Emma, but nothing would come out. I I couldn't even move. And then it sat on my bed and I felt the weight sink on the edge, like something was really there. This kept happening for months. I don't know how to explain it. Every night I was just hoping it wouldn't come back, but then Emma finally moved out, and since then it's been quiet, at least for me. But Emma said she and her boyfriend say they're still dealing with all that kinds of crazy stuff at their place, maybe the same thing. Oh, that's creepy. The way that was described, it's like the room was already dark, but you could still see this thing because it was darker than the darkness. Alright, next story. I heard about your channel through a friend, and he told me that you tell people's experiences with the paranormal, so I'm gonna tell you 2 personal ones to get your advice. My first story starts back when I was a kid in the 90s, and my cousin and I were at our aunt and uncle's house on the front porch listening to the rain, telling jokes, when I noticed something very odd on the other side of the train tracks. It was a tall shadow figure that kind of looked like a stick man drawing, walking across the field in the woods. I asked my cousin if he saw that, but they thought I was making it up. I nervously laughed because no one believed me. Well, fast forward a week or 2 later, I was on the porch by myself when I noticed that thing again. I stopped playing on the porch after that. I don't know what it was, but I will never forget what I saw. Second story. My cousin and I used to play this game, and I don't know if anyone else has ever heard of it, but we called it the leaf game. You lightly put yes or no on the leaf and ask it a yes or no question, and then you rub it on wood or wire fence. As you rub, the yes or no would get darker by the answer. Well, one day we were all playing it and got caught by my grandma, who said we shouldn't be playing that game and that we didn't know what we were messing with. Never played it again, but that game is still fresh in my mind. Have you heard of this game or anything like it? Third story. I need advice on what to tell my friends because when he sleeps, he sometimes sees things in his room or on the other side of the window. Once he told me he saw a little blonde girl at the foot of his bed standing, and he asked who she was, and she laughed and vanished. This one time he told me he saw a figure at his window that looked like a Grim Reaper skeleton face. But this last time when he was sleeping with his ex, he saw a black cat on the door frame looking down at him. It had piercing green eyes. I'm worried that something's messing with him, but he doesn't think I should worry. What should I say or do? Okay, so for the first story that was about the stick figure, where it was near woods, it could just be a creature that lurks around the woods. I would try to ignore it, pay it no mind. Usually if you ignore things, they ignore you back. I'm assuming that happened years ago and nothing really came of it, so I would just put that in the back of your mind. Now, as far as the second story goes, I have never heard of the leaf game in my life, and now I want to go play it. I want to go play it so badly. That does sound kind of like a pendulum Ouija board-esque thing, but yeah. I mean, it could open doorways for things for sure. Now, as far as the third story goes, I would put up protections, see if they're open to putting up some protections. You're really vulnerable when you sleep, so things will sometimes come to you. I recommend sleeping with some obsidian on you if you can, in a necklace, in a pocket, something. You could set up wards in that room. I would cleanse the space, just see what they're open to, but yeah, I would recommend cleansings and protection. Well, that is all for the stories today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.